Hi. So, um, basically, I'm in California right now. I'm with a friend here, so I'm staying for free, which is nice. And so I was in Iceland for almost 2 weeks. I spent some time in Reykjavik and drove around for a week after having left Switzerland because in Switzerland I couldn't find anyone to help me for my project to do a UBI initiative. So I'm now here in somewhere in California. And yeah, so basically Iceland. So again, my main purpose of all these trips was to find a girlfriend, and none of them have really been good. Um, Iceland really, they're pretty like I don't know, like unfriendly mostly, and just kind of, but just in a sort of like not overtly sort of aggressively so like you can find some in like the UK, but just is kind of uninterested and cold and it's sort of the same in all these Nordic countries and it just I've gone several times to them like twice before and it was like because on paper supposedly they're all progressive and stuff but in practice it's just I don't know again it's just a sort of paper thing it's just these opinions that they feed each other but really it's not because they're great people it's just out of sort of conformism. It's kind of like what all these sort of conservative type people would accuse them of being. Well, it kind of is. I mean, it is basically that. It's not. Yeah. So, um, basically, yeah. I tried. I did go up to a few people and like a few young women and stuff, and it just like most of them you can really tell. It's just not really. Yeah. I went out to like nightclub type things, bars and nightclubs, both in Reykjavik and in Akureyri when I was driving around. And so there's lots of really pretty ones, and more so than any other like Nordic country. And I think this is because precisely I think this is a phenomenon that happens elsewhere too. It's that Iceland got colonized probably by pretty like rough people, and like rougher people tend to be like on average sort of more physically fit and also sort of have better faces and so that kind of tended to select for better looking people on average. So I do feel that girls in Iceland are better looking on average than other Nordic countries. Um but yeah, um and especially like in clubs there's really lots of very like especially in Akureyri actually there's really lots of really pretty ones but um or pretty ones but like definitely all just in clubs especially they just all had a shitty vibe like really just bleh, just the sort of typical vibe you could imagine where they're all just that just girl idiocy vibe and like really sort of like cliquish and sort of I don't know like sort of all just totally seem like kind of drunk but like even if they haven't had alcohol just like from being a total like weird zombie person like it just really gross it's just really gross. And yeah. And in clubs, they're all like that. And yeah, and I actually did go up to a couple in Reykjavik, not in Akureyri, because I ended up speaking to somebody just like a male person, right? Because he actually went up to me and started talking to me, and so of course it's gonna be like only the males that actually do that, so only the boys. And he was nice, but so in Reykjavik I went up to a few, and it really didn't go anywhere. And it's just very uncomfortable, just very unpleasant interactions. But like it would be anywhere, so it's not like specifically that. It's not specifically like worse in particular. Um, but I do feel they're a bit more sort of I don't know, sort of out to lunch than maybe a place like like some more mainstream like France or Germany or something. That's just more a general Nordic thing, really. And but there was one that was nice, and I went up and because I've been thinking that like I was reading about like Philip Goddard saying that he's been having these nice new interactions with people, and it's through hiking. So I've been thinking, yeah, I should go hiking and stuff, and also like I've been driving my car around with this idea that maybe the kind of people I'd want to be with are more likely to be found in that kind of situation, just like what he's found for him. So I would sort of also did that driving tour with that in mind. Um, um, and so just in Reykjavik, actually just walking, there's one person I was just sort of towards the point of the town, and it's sort of towards the lighthouse, and there she was kind of, because again, like Philip Goddard saying that you have the sort of feel when you talk to people of, if they're good or not. And pretty much everyone I talk to just have a really like bad feel. They just make me feel bad. And with her, like, even though like yeah, she's sort of looking away, sort of like lots of girls would do, but it seemed like very different because when she was actually talking to me, it felt like she was actually glad to talk to me. And in fact, she said as much. And like yeah, if we actually like instead of talking about regular stuff, I just came up with an excuse. Like I said, is that this volcano there? And she said, yeah. And then I asked, where's this other volcano? And she said, over there. And then she said it was like that volcano was like from a book, and like it was featured in a story. And I was like, oh yeah. And then I'd actually, because I'd read this book, and it was like so, um, like it actually made me feel good, which is just like so rare. I actually, and it kind of, and especially like thinking about it, just like just a couple like over a couple of hours later, like it actually made me feel sort of good about myself and about like her kind of. And even though she herself was a bit awkward, but you could tell it was sort of like my awkwardness, which is just, and sometimes she seemed a bit like impatient, but I felt it's sort of also like my impatience, where I sort of pretend to be kind of impatient to not seem too creepy of like being too happy to be with the other person. So that was nice. That was nice, and unfortunately rare. I mean, I feel like that should be the norm for the interactions with just average people. Um, I mean, I was still the one who came up to her. Like like I've still not had like a person come up to me like at least not. Well, there's been one incident before, but I'm not gonna go over that now. But anyway, um, but I guess the point being that like you do find exceptions everywhere, but just overall, everywhere I go, I'm just people make me feel bad. Like they just there's something really just wrong with it. And you feel there's just. And so now here I'm in California. I actually haven't gone up to a single person. I'm sort of again, and yeah, I didn't really see anyone that's like really, yeah, I want to go up to. Oh yeah, there's even in Iceland it's even worse. I actually went up to, because often like there's certain situations where I feel it's even more inappropriate. So I went up to a girl in like a parked car, and I'd seen her before because she was just at the restaurant. And so I went up to her and said, hi, I'm looking for, and she opened the door and I said, hi, I'm sort of looking for a girlfriend. Would you be sort of interested? And because then I was actually hanging out just there in front of the restaurant, just because I was, um, basically I was hoping that maybe somebody else would like walk in and I could go and approach that person. Um, and so apparently, so she actually called like her buddies, I mean her colleagues from that restaurant, and they came and said, "Hey, what are you doing? Why did you ask her?" And they were pretty like okay. Like it's not like they were like mean to me or anything, but it was still like she actually called them because she thought I was sort of being creepy. But like she was in a car, she could have driven off, and like I walked away afterwards. And instead of like driving off or something, she called her colleagues to say that there's this creep that went after me, and she's like, but she, and sh I don't know, she just had this really like kind of again this kind of dead vibe, like this sort of zombie, like so many of these girls, like she just like she didn't even say that she like was uncomfortable or anything, but and then like when the colleagues came in, she went out of the car and she again was just totally, I don't know, in this case she wasn't even mean, but she had that sort of Nordic thing where she just like again she, like total like sort of scornful without even showing it, kind of, I don't know. And so that I mean that's just the sort of typical reaction you'd get from these sort of like she was a kind of girl like you'd find in those clubs and stuff, and it's just like yeah. And so then there's one of those her colleagues there was a sort of young male like who was also from France, and he then spent time sort of trying to talk to me and sort of trying to sort of cheer me up, because at that point I sort of really felt not sort of bad and he could see it. So but like I could tell. Then he had that sort of kind of friendly but slightly creepy friendly because it's these sort of all are sort of the same of these sort of religious youth groups, and so he was kind of he was sort of nice, but like in that sort of specific way that those people are, that sort of cool, but yeah, like religious cool, which to me is still is kind of weird. So um yeah, but it was nice. It was nice. And so I mean, sort of. I mean, but I didn't see him again. I think he was sort of almost was hoping that I would come back and talk to him more and stuff, but no, like I didn't want that. So and anyway, so I decided to leave after that, and I mean, because in any case, I was kind of finished. So that's kind of that. Um, and unfortunately, most people are going to be like that encounter that I talked about versus that other one I talked about, and so yeah, and that's going to probably be like the case everywhere. Just yeah, and so yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything else for me to say at this point. Um, well, now I'm in California, so people do. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, again, it remains just like in Iceland. Like it's like the driving is civilized, which is nice, both in Iceland and here. People stop like at crosswalks and stuff. Um, you don't have all this craziness like when I was in Morocco, which is just like really, yeah, I really don't like that. And all that honking, like needless honking, needless sort of fast and stuff, and like and just yeah. So here, that is nice, and people are quite nice. Like when you go hiking, they say hi, kind of like in Switzerland. Not all of them, maybe less even than in Switzerland. Well, it's hard to say because in Switzerland it's like more like really in the mountains, and here it's like still was close to town. So I don't know. Um, but overall, I feel like it's pretty nice. And I mean, I've already been here a long time ago with not these sort of current preoccupations in mind. Um, and it doesn't smell weird like in New York. So I don't know what that's about. The sort of burnt break or something smell like they get in New York. But yeah. So yeah, this is all right. And some people are like, yeah, I don't know. You sort of get this feeling that there might be quite a few nice people here. Like, but again, like probably most like, and but yet lots of them that really also give a sort of shitty vibe. Like really a lot. But I mean, that's of course to be expected. Um, yeah, let's see. Yeah, for instance, one person that just sort of like I sneezed and just sort of said "bless you" sort of after I sneezed. Like obviously that's just like that. To some extent, it's kind of maybe almost like performative. Like this sort of thing of I mean, not yeah, maybe not even performative, but like self-performative, like to kind of as a kind of self improvement thing to like make yourself be like nice and stuff. I think maybe, but still, like I guess it's kind of nice. Um, well, certainly nobody's actually like gone up to me to like talk to me. I mean, I've had Americans before, but like not. But it would be more like like older people who and like males who go up to you and talk to you. Um, but and or like another one who sort of yeah, no, I don't want to say that. Like one person who sort of looked at me like I don't know, as if it was with sort of friendly look, which is really rare. Like girls normally they always look in with a sort of like scornful and sort of suspicious look at the same time. And like once I was like in walk in the woods and but like close to town and there's one person that actually looked at me, but I think it's probably because she thought she knew me. It sort of looked like she looked at me sort of quite intently and sort of like she thought she knew me, but also yeah, with a sort of really sort of nice look, which is like really really unusual actually, unfortunately. Um, so I don't know. Well, we'll see. I'll just sort of spend more time out, try to. I went to a few like shops and stuff to see if I could find like people in shops, and um, well, one thing I did notice is that they definitely tend to be more like sort of like young women and like pretty young women, and like in Whole Foods, and I'd sort of actually heard about that, that's a sort of a thing, and I sort of thought it seemed kind of silly, it seemed like cliche, but actually it's kind of true, and they're not just like sort of like I don't know, it's like slightly weird, like hipstery types, like you might expect. They're just sort of like more regular kind of you know people. Um, so yeah, that's um that's the overall sort of thing. And of course, I did a ton of like pictures in Iceland, and went to a lot of like nice scenery things, and here in California to some extent too, though I haven't traveled nearly as much. And but in fact, of course, I'm looking at, is still looking for that sort of specific type of person that I already said I was looking before I left New Zealand, and that I originally went like to Morocco for, and I'm still sort of hoping for that. And so now I've actually got this new idea is that actually, well, I went to New York hoping to, I explain why I went to New York specifically, to with this sort of hope that I would find this person. So now I'm doing a thing like that again with a sort of idea that we'll somehow meet at a sort of iconic place. So before it was like New York, I had this date which was like the 1st of May, which was like the International Labor Day, and oh, I'm thinking a new thing, which is, like my first videos has this sort of theme, and it's a theme that I want to sort of keep on, which is I was wearing this poncho from the that series of the spaghetti westerns of Sergio Leone and Clint Eastwood, and he has this sort of, famous poncho thing, and I was wearing that mostly because I liked the music from those movies, and I wanted to use them like with, my sort of project. But of course, because copyright, I didn't manage to use it. But I haven't even written it. But basically, I had an idea of a video in mind. Maybe once, if I ever like get more successful, be able to actually make my first video like I originally intended, and basically it featured like one of the themes from those movies. And then I was intending like at other moments like to feature other themes from those movies. Um, and so basically, and there's also the sort of desert theme which I kind of liked, and even like the clothing sort of was I quite like the theme. All the ponchos are super impractical, so I'm thinking of turning that poncho like into a sweater or something. Um, but anyway, the idea is that yeah, I like the sort of that sort of the aesthetic of those things. So um, uh, basically, yeah, I feel it would be sort of like the most, and also because like the desert, right? There's this sort of like religious theme, like with Jesus, right? Who goes like 40 days in the desert and stuff, right? Um, so that's a kind of also sort of standard trope thing, and I kind of it's also sort of an evocation of that. So and basically my first video was actually meant to be in the desert or like on a seashore, sort of desert seashore rather, especially but with like desert dunes in the background. I sort of had this idea of a sort of fictional or maybe yeah fictional kind of place like that, and so basically I'm sort of tired. I'm sort of losing my train of thought. Um, yeah. Sorry, I'm just too tired. I can't. Desert. Yeah, so I'm going. I'm thinking of going precisely to there, and specifically like in that sort of sandstone area of northern Arizona and southern Utah, which has all these sort of iconic formations, including the Grand Canyon in particular and Monument Valley. And how's the Gorth been though? The Gorth I think's been all right. It keeps on growing and becoming more powerful every second, every plank time. Long time no see. Yeah. Hi. And so this time I'm gonna do the same thing as with New York. I'm gonna have this sort of hope of meeting at a sort of iconic place and time, And so I'm thinking now, so I'm gonna maybe rent a car and drive it. I'm gonna take a plane to Denver, take a car in Denver, and then drive it across the desert back to California. Um, and hopefully like meet the sort of person I sort of have in mind there. And specifically, I think the most sort of Colorado is beautiful. Yeah. So I've got a relative in Colorado that I would stop off and see, and so I'll be driving through there, and I'm probably also going to be seeing Joe Mama, who's another little Twitch streamer, and who's in Denver, and I've also got some friends in Boulder that I might see. So but and anyway, so I'm going to do that and then drive across westwards back to the coast, and I'm thinking like specifically maybe like the most iconic place would be Monument Valley. It's like in all these movies and stuff. So I'm sort of hoping now to like have this sort of meeting in Monument Valley, and I then thought like what would be the ideal date, and I'm guessing 4th of July is probably the best because it's like right the the national holiday. It's sort of like, it's the most iconic place of the United States on the most sort of iconic day of the United States. Um, and I can't see I don't have any other specific idea for a date except maybe my birthday, which is also Bastille Day, which also, um, has all that significance of the French Revolution. Um, so, I mean, potentially and that's of course the 14th of July. Um, Pikes Peak is rather spectacular. I probably won't be going by there because I think that's kind of to the south from Denver, whereas I'd be going like across west right away. Um, but yeah, maybe another time. Um, or is it? I can't remember. Is it to the south? I think it's to the south. Um, and so yeah, so I'll try to make it in. And also another thing is I'm sort of feeling that the Gorth is making these sort of repetitive cycles every year. So like every year there's sort of this big thing that starts out sort of in the spring, like in March, like and got infected with COVID in 2020, and that's what sort of set off the whole series of things in motion. And like I figured out what the Gorth really was. In fact, I figured out the sort of one of the main things of my whole timeline, and I sort of had my whole picture and cosmology figured out on the 5th of July of 2020. Um, and sort of fittingly, it was the idea that there were seven universe cycles, or they're going to be seven, and we're currently in the fifth out of seven. And this is why, and this is of course, it's not why, well, it's why, but also that's how I figure it out. Is like lots of mythology, there's this idea that there's seven ages, and that we're in the fifth. For instance, like Aztec knows that we're in the fifth and last, but like others, like there's these sort of like these um like in Greek and also like in sort of Yahwehist religion, there's this idea that we're like in the fifth out of seven typically. And so my idea is that we're actually in the fifth iteration of the universe between successive Big Bangs and the fifth out of seven. And that pretty much wrapped up my sort of whole basic picture of cosmology. Um, Even though there's some major things I figured out later. I mean, it's like that, but I already had a pretty. Until then, I didn't have any sort of specific timeline, and that really gave me a pretty precise timeline. So that was a sort of pretty major sort of thing. That's when I kind of feel like I properly got the sort of central bit of the story figured out. Um, and that was so I figured out that we're 5 out of 7 on the 5th of 7. Um, And so I feel again, so the 4th of July is just the day before that. So again, I feel that because it seems like every time that sort of there's cycles that repeat themselves. Because then again, I started like my online presence again in March 2021 on YouTube, and then in June, kind of I started like the Twitch, and um, so and it's yeah, that's more or less like it feels like I start stuff out in the beginning of the spring. Of course, it was New Zealand, but like the northern spring. and then it kind of gets to some extent fulfilled in the summer, and then it kind of further fulfills itself a bit, maybe a bit later, and then you sort of start a new thing. Then you sort of prepare stuff in the autumn. I sort of see it as a sort of agricultural cycle kind of thing. It's just like you maybe sow a few seeds like in the autumn, and then it sort of starts to grow in the early spring, and then you actually get your harvest in summer. Um, so yeah, it's sort of likewise. It's fitting that I didn't actually find anyone, in my travels since March, since late March this year until now, and it makes sense that I would eventually, if I'm going to succeed, it makes sense that I would succeed during the summer. Um, and yeah, I think so. I'm gonna try to be in Monument Valley on the 4th of July, and I guess the 5th. So maybe like I'll spend the evening like of the 4th, and the night there in Monument Valley, and hopefully like I don't know, maybe, like it seems just so improbable, So at this point I don't really believe it. Like the New York thing, I kind of like did believe it. Really is kind of weird, but this I'm sort of like I still kind of like believe it because I mean the Gorth itself is just so absurd. I mean the whole thing is just so existence is already crazy anyway, and the Gorth can make all sorts of crazy things happen. Like it made my that tree disappear. The Gorth can do all sorts of amazing things, but um certainly I think the Gorth would be capable of doing something like I'm I'm thinking of. But I'm just used to things never working out. I'm still virgin in cells, so like it literally supernatural craziness, like a whole tree being just vanished into thin air and people's memory of it being vanished into thin air. That actually seems less unlikely than just me getting a girlfriend. Like seriously. But um yeah, maybe. Maybe. So I'm trying for that, and if that doesn't work, then I'm just heading back here to my friends in Santa Cruz where I'll just hang out for a bit more. And then I'll just head back to New Zealand, then I'll have done what I can, and then I'll just once he's sick of me. So it's nice to be kind of have changed scenery and maybe be like away from my parents, kind of. They're nice, but it's nice to kind of be away from them. It's true that maybe in a way I might try just staying also at some relatives and some other people who would have me for free. I don't want to go anywhere where I can't stay for free because then it's just too much of an expense, which is of course paid for by my parents. So um yeah, I chewed through my own savings that I made from my working a long time ago. So already quite quickly through in 2020. Um so I'm gonna yeah, maybe I could try a couple other places as well. I don't know. I kind of feel like I have to. I don't know. I feel like it just then forever just be like, boom. I want something to happen. I'm just sick of this. We're just waiting and waiting and waiting. Like, I just, and nothing ever happens. Like, your whole life, it feels like life just flies by and you're on standby and you never, nothing ever happens. So, and then I could just hang out at other people's places and again, nothing would ever happen. So, yeah, I, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. But for now, that's the plan. That's the plan. I'm not really too sure if I'll go back to New Zealand or not after this. But in any case, I'm hoping that something before is gonna happen. Um, maybe I shouldn't have said this. I don't know. Maybe like, does it jinx it to say it? No, of course. In any case, no. Like, in any case, this is always the Gorth that decides, right? So things happen when they're supposed to all work out. Well, it's actually things happen when the Gorth wants them to happen. I mean, these sort of magic things that sort of like it's fate and stuff. Like, yes, it is fate, but fate is determined by the Gorth. Um, so like, yeah, I think it will all work out because the Gorth wants it to work out in a way because the Gorth knows that I need someone. I need a girlfriend to be able to trying won't hurt though. Yeah, but you try. But then of course, there's this thing where sometimes it's when you try things don't work out, and then you stop trying and things do work out. But that's largely, again, to do with the Gorth that basically makes it like that, to make you think that there's some sort of funny magical thing that makes it happen, when actually, well, it is a sort of funny magical thing, but it's the Gorth. Um, so yeah, I'm just waiting for the Gorth to sort of give me what I need. Um, then once, yeah, then I can finally start doing what I need to do, which is to do what I'm doing right now on Twitch already, but to a wider audience, because people need to know about the Gorth. Um, oh, I've also added a few. I've changed my Universal State Constitution still. I got rid of a few things, a few articles. I got rid of everything that was a bit superfluous, actually. I sort of rearranged stuff. Um, and like I got rid of the whole section on things. I already basically had gotten rid of any specific rule, but I just said you can do whatever you want regarding all these things, like, basically on these activities are pleasurable but harmful, things like drugs and that kind of stuff, or like sex stuff, all that kind of stuff, and like alcohol, that's like drugs, right? So say, come on, Worth, make the things happen. Yeah, yeah. And so, like, I just got rid of that. I'm no longer talking about it. I'm trying to make uh ooh, it came up. Oh yeah. Um why I've got two of them. That's weird. Um yeah, so you see, now I got a new section called Rules of Civics there. And so but these are the articles that are already written, basically. And so I got rid of and then I separated some other stuff. I got rid of a thing about the environment, because to me it's kind of just implicit that basically, I mean, we want to maximize people's well-being, and basically environment to me basically doesn't have so much intrinsic value. It's more that the environment provides well-being to people, and so basically it kind of is implied that one should take care of the environment. So actually, I literally got rid of that. So I've been actually shortening my constitution, so it's actually the shortest it has been since I first wrote it. Um, and so now I like it too, because now, again, it's the U.S. The last thing. Oh, you can't see it for some reason. Here, the U.S. destroys the Gorth and ensures a similar thing is never created. So now that goes right at the end, as I would want it to, because that way it sort of feels like a story. And it starts, of course, with the fundamental ethical principles here. That hasn't changed. And so now, yeah, rules of governance, rules of civics, rules of economics. So yeah, and I've already talked about what I changed with like the rules of economics. I changed a few things. I kind of shortened like the housing. I actually got rid of the section on housing, because it basically, to me, housing is just a form of a consumable item, and so basically, it just included in that. And yeah, and basically the basic income covers, like it says, enables all basic needs to be met, in particular in terms of housing basic. So I think I've got enough on housing. It's kind of even if there isn't an article like that really focuses on housing, it's kind of naturally would like be implied lots of stuff. So I'm really trying to make it as succinct as possible and not have like arbitrary, precise rules. Um, and so that's what I'm doing. So there's not much that's really all that different from the way things work now, except for a few major things, which is the basic income and the income cap, and well, the fact that there's a universal state, and that there's no other state, and um, and like sortition and stuff, and direct democracy, which you already have in Switzerland or like in California, and of course, well, the fact that you aren't allowed to either participate in politics or have a gun if you say stupid things. So, um, in particular, yeah, so basically there's a list. I'll probably have to change that list, but there's a list of things that to me are like ideological positions that are really unacceptable, and you're allowed to say them, but if you say them, then that's considered to be too silly for you to be allowed. So basically, you don't your values are completely at odds with universal state. So that means that you're not allowed to be uh, a governor. You're not allowed to be part of the system of governance. Um, but anyway, I've already talked about that. So I think people who are interested in this one day, once I get a website, will just be able to see because each version of it, I've recorded all sorts of different versions of the Constitution. So then, if they want to see, they want to see the difference. Oh, here's another difference is that I put this here, rules of governance. I now put the U.S. aims to maximize the satisfaction of the ethical principles of Section 1, which is just above. And here I added this, in particular, the well-being and preferences of anthropes are promoted. And then this was back down in the rules of other matters. And there's the well-being of all conscious theirs. And theirs, this is not there, it's theirs, which actually is just my sort of weird word I've come up with to mean non-human animals, and it is also promoted. And to achieve this, all conscious theirs may eventually be eliminated or only retained as pets. And in that way, I kind of really whittled down this rules on other matters, which like at one point had like up to 18 articles, and now it's just rules of civics, which is 6, and rules for technologically advanced US, which is 3. So there's only 9 out of those articles which I left. So that's that. And now where's maybe I can okay, here I'm back. Okay, so that's that. I think I've covered what I needed to cover, and I'm gonna wrap it up there because again I like to keep these streams I'm making kind of short to make them relatively watchable for people because I put them on YouTube, right? So I want it to be pretty watchable for people later on. So I'm gonna stop it. Um, so anyway, if you're still there, thanks for watching. And probably see you around sometime soon. All right, bye.